Hi, everyone. Welcome to Grab Your Keys. I am very excited to have Marcia Davies here. She is a fantastic woman in the mortgage industry and for empowering women. And I was tickled to get her to be on Grab Your Keys. So, especially since she just retired,
Mhm,
2026 is a new chapter in her life. And
mhm,
I just can't wait to see what's going on. But I do want to hear you know, a couple things about how you started mPower, what your
mhm,
passion has been, and
mhm.
why you feel so strongly about that. So, Marcia, welcome to
Yeah.
Grab Your Keys.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you for having me. And even though I have just left the industry, thank you for reaching out. And I'm so excited to explore all the different topics that you have teed up for today.
Yeah, so I'm so happy that you're joining us
Hmm.
even though you're retired because I you would be one person I didn't have on this show that I would have wanted to have on the show, but you were so busy
Hmm.
and in doing everything for the mortgage industry with the Mortgage Bankers Association
Hmm.
and so involved. Where are you in your chapter right now? In looking back on everything that you've done, when you look back on that, are you like just wow, how did I get it all done?
Well, some days are like that when I sit back and think when I was working at Freddie Mac, which is where I had both of my children and an hour commute and decorating the house to the nines for Christmas and sending out Christmas cards and, doing everything. And now I'm like, how did I do all of that?
Right.
And yeah, and the only thing I can say is I was 30 years younger when all of that was taking place. But as far as looking back on my career, I'm just very proud wherever I worked. I feel like I left it better
Mhm.
than I found it. And I feel like I've made an impact in every job that I've had. So I knew it was time for me, and I am fortunate enough that I could retire
Right.
when I wanted to retire. And it was time to make room for others, right? To give my seat at the table to others so that they could have opportunities to thrive.
In watching
Hmm.
and being part of the mortgage industry and a
Hmm.
strong woman in the mortgage industry
Hmm.
throughout your career, where did you expect it to come as far as it's come from A to B, from where it started when you started in the industry to
Hmm.
where it is now? Do you feel like it's gone on a trajectory that you would have expected, or did you think that we would be farther in building up women in the mortgage industry?
So, Sue, let me start kind of at the beginning, right? I was in the mortgage industry. I was young. I spent 21 years at Freddie Mac. I got to reinvent myself four times. I was fortunate enough to get to the senior ranks, and a lot of times, not surprisingly, I was the only woman in the room. And when I went to MBA several years later, and I was traveling across the country, the one thing the MBA brings for people who work there is we get a unique seat to see things that happen all over the country, right? So and all the disciplines that are in our industry, whether you're in servicing or if you're in originations, and no matter what your business model is, MBA has something for you. And so when I was traveling around the country at all of our different conferences, it did not surprise me that there weren't as many women at conferences than men. But what did surprise me is the women didn't seem to know each other. It would be they knew their obviously male colleagues, and if they were traveling with a female colleague, they knew. But women didn't know other women, even though they were at the same conference. And so I decided to start hosting events for women to see if, out of a very busy conference schedule, and Sue, I know you've got a lot going on at your home. And when you travel, you have a lot to do before you leave and then a lot to do when you get back. So when you're on the road, I'm guessing you make that time as efficient as possible. And so I didn't know if women would take an hour outside of their schedule during a busy conference to meet other women.
Right.
And I invited 75 women randomly. I maybe knew 10 of the 75 that I was invited to a lunch in San Diego back many, now 10 years ago. And 150 showed up. And that was the spark. And then I realized I need to not only educate the women in our industry, but the organizations in our industry about the value, the power, and the influence that women have in all of decisions that go on, whether it's to buy a house or to buy a car, or right, a woman. Um, Women control so much of consumer spending that I wanted to be sure organizations knew bringing women into your leadership is going to make you better,
Right.
because we bring very different perspectives, very different experiences. We are get it done by nature, right? We are people who, women are different than men. We just are. And I think what happened with Empower, it surprised me of because what happened was it showed me how hungry women in our industry were for connection, somebody to talk to if they were hitting challenges in their career, somebody to lean on if they felt like they didn't have a lot of support coming in other areas. And women just kept showing up and getting engaged and helping other women. And I'll never forget, Denver 9 years ago was our first all day event, Empowering You. And then the annual convention started the next day. And I remember if you remember Denver, you can have an escalator going up and going
Hmm.
down to the conference space. And women are high-fiving each other on the escalators. And I was like, this is fabulous.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
fabulous. I was
Yeah.
not at that conference, but I do know the
Yes.
Denver. So, and when I went to conferences in 2010, 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, um, I would bring my team because
Mhm.
I didn't know that many people. So,
Right.
having that relationship, because women going up and talking to other women in not that type of gathering
Hmm.
is difficult at times because
Right.
you don't know what to expect from
Correct.
women, and that's unfortunate at times.
Mhm.
But we are so busy, or we're on the telephone. We have so many different obligations. We're running out to call the kids who might be on
Mhm.
a different time zone. And as you said, you have a three-ring circus going on at home, and you're
Mhm.
trying to run a company or a division of a company.
Right.
So what do you feel the three keys to empower success were?
For me personally, you mean empower that I
Or
started,
anything,
or
just
empowering?
your
Okay.
I meant it, I didn't, I mean,
Right.
if you wanna say
Right.
for Empower to be as successful as it was, we could do those keys, but also for
Oh,
your keys.
I think for me personally, it was, and I didn't realize, because I was young, I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. And now I can put words around it. But being ready to take risks and not being afraid, whether they're big or small. As I said, I reinvented myself at Freddie Mac 4 times. Each one of those times where I accepted a job outside of my comfort zone was a risk. And fortunately, they paid off. They prepared me very well for the job I had when I went into the government. I spent 19 months working there when Dave Stevens was
Mhm.
FHA commissioner, and then incredibly well for MBA. So taking risks. The other is, and like you, many of us manage large groups of people. And I'm very, very, very adamant about it's so simple, but treat people the way you want to be treated. You would think that that is easy, but it doesn't happen. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you're handing out bonuses, right? It's quarterly bonus time, year end bonus time, and you have managers who report to you, and they have people. And so you share with the spreadsheet with the manager, here's your team's bonuses. It's like Christmas.
Right.
And then you find out that they didn't tell them right away. And I'm like, and I found it, somebody said, well, I had a meeting and then I figured I'd just do it tomorrow or what. And I'm like, but they know you have the information. How would you be if I held it back
Right.
because of a meeting, right? Make things a priority that you know are very important. And then the last, I would say, which made me very successful, are relationships. You
Mm-hmm.
have to take the time to network, and you have to take the time to develop relationships where it's mutual. As far as if I need something from somebody, I have put some deposits in that relationship bank. I'm not just calling and taking from somebody, right? You want the relationship to be give and take. So I always was aware if I was going to ask somebody for something that I needed to have a strong enough relationship with them, and that I have helped them in the past, and it really developed trust that way.
Yeah, that's the developing trust and relationships. I have so many fantastic friends
Hmm.
all over the country from
Hmm.
traveling and from putting myself out there. And you don't realize how important that is. When I first started, before I started CLG, I was very regional,
Hmm.
just very regional. And then when I started to go to conferences after 2010, I started to realize you really need a national
Hmm.
presence, and you really need to talk to those other people because you learn
Right.
so much from those relationships. They're
Right.
really priceless.
Yes.
And that's why, even as I was just saying to you before we got on, I was at the Independent Mortgage Bankers Conference, and mPower had a fantastic panel of
Right.
all wonderful women. And you just
Hmm.
learn from each and every one of them,
Hmm.
because everyone has their own way of handling their three ring circus. If they have
Hmm.
children and they're working, and as I look
Hmm.
back, and we were saying it, like, I don't even know how I handled all
Right.
that. That is just so crazy to me. How did I handle two kids and two labs and a family and getting dinner on the table? Even yesterday, no kids at home. I struggled with making
Yeah.
dinner. I was like, how did I do this?
Without DoorDash.
Yeah, how did I do this? So how did you do it? How did you have a career and a family and travel and manage all
Hmm.
of that? How did you handle that?
Well, like you said, I think it happens, and you figure it out along the way. My husband and I would divide up childcare duties, right? Who's taking the kids to childcare, who can pick them up, always planning travel and making sure that there is an infrastructure there to support whatever needs to go on at home. And I think, it sounds so, you know, cliche, but communication. I think women have a hard time asking for help. I
Yes.
know they do. And when you finally start asking for help, people show up to help you, whether it's your daycare provider, your spouse, your sister, your parents, a friend, whatever it is. And I think women have started to step up in ways in the office where now there's a lot more telework. Back when I was coming up through the ranks, that was unheard of, actually. And so I think there's some more flexibility that exists now. And I look back, and yeah, a lot of things were a blur. We always wanted three kids. At least we thought we did. My husband's one of three. I'm one of three.
Hmm.
And we had our two very close together. And so I was like, this is a lot, two in diapers and everything else. And I'll never forget being at the pool with the kids the first year, because they had completed all their swimming and whatever. And I didn't have to be in the pool with them.
Hmm.
Like, I could be reading People magazine on a
Right.
chaise. Yeah. And I thought, there's no way we're having a third. I'm not going. I'm not going back. I've been through war, but I will say there's a lot of my 30s that are kind of a blur, because I
Right.
think we were just doing, 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 and
Yeah,
if I could go back and yeah.
my daughter last night sent a picture of me sleeping on the couch with our two lab puppies. And she
Uh-huh.
was like, "Oh my God, you must have been really tired." And I thought back, I was like, I had a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old and two puppies. Yes.
Right.
And I had started a company. Yes, I was
I was
tired.
tired.
And she was like, "Look, you're like sound asleep on the couch." And they
Yeah.
must have thought that was funny and snapped a picture of it. And here she is now, she's going from 7 to now 22,
Right.
sending me this picture saying, "God, mom, you were really tired."
Yes. Yes, mom was.
Yeah. So I have to like I always tell people like it's a challenge, but it's a great
Hmm.
challenge and you will get through it
Yes, you
in
will.
one piece, even though sometimes you won't feel like you're going to get through it in one piece. And I
Right.
also did ask for the help. I think outside the house, I asked for help too in at work in delegating things. How did you
Hmm.
feel delegation was part of your, how did that help you in your
It
positions?
so in the beginning, when I was a new manager, it's hard to delegate because it's hard to let go. And I realized it's a great tool to figure out how strong your bench is, right? If you delegate, and you have to be willing for someone to fail and learn from that, and you coach them through that. And it's been incredibly important my entire career because the thing is, we aren't going to be hands on and technical in every single thing we manage. And so the people that we entrust those functions to have to feel empowered, have to
Right.
feel like they can make decisions. And if they make a mistake, we'll work through it. I always say to the people who work, the cover up is worse than the crime, as we would say, right?
Right.
I'd rather know if something's going on so we can address it together and fix it and figure out, learn from it. But if I don't know and then find out later, that's harder to recover from when you've entrusted someone and delegated to them.
Right.
And so I think it's key. I also think it's key for succession planning. And my last several years at MBA, I was planning for my future retirement. I wanted to be sure that my bench was there so that when I left, MBA could just keep, rocking and
And
rolling and
still flourishing.
thriving. And yes, yes,
Still flourishing, and it is flourishing. So
yes, it
that's
is.
definitely hats off to you
Thank you.
for having an amazing succession plan,
Thank you.
which is vital
Yes.
for for the legacy, especially since you've put so much elbow grease into it. What challenge do you feel shaped your leadership the most? Um,
Yeah. I didn't know it at the time because, again, young. My first job in Washington, D.C. was with the Association of Trial Lawyers. And I got the job because the executive director and the man that was hiring me were both from New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey. There was this, it was back in 19 like 80, right? So
right,
it was really a lot of times you got jobs based on relate, but a temp agency had sent me in there and the whole Jersey thing clicked. So I start working at the Association of Trial Lawyers, and my boss was the director of administration. And the way this association kept the lights on, the operating budget was the profitability off of two of their conferences. So he was teaching me everything about how to make an event profitable, how to negotiate, how to work with hotels, et cetera. And then he created a new position. He created a manager for me. And Sue, I was not my best self. I was like, wait a minute. I've been working with you for 18 months. I've been your right hand, and now you're hiring somebody. And Donna comes in, my new manager, and I always say I gave her a run for her money, right? The
mhm.
Jersey came out in me, and I know more about this job than you're going to know. Discounting, what
Yeah,
you
that
do when you're in your
Jerseyness,
early
that
20s. Yeah,
Northeast personality.
yes, and also it's like you just came in and discounting her experience altogether, right? Because that's I call myself the young and the restless, right? Back then, when you're that young, you just don't know what you don't know. And Sue, was the best boss. She mentored me.
That's so
She
amazing.
called out my accomplishments. She told me what was going on in her world, in the association business, that kind of thing. And then we started to get to know each other more on a personal level. So I was lucky because the way she mentored me, I created my management style based on that experience. And then the way I got into the mortgage business is she was unceremoniously fired. There had been a change at the leadership. She got fired because she asked for the title and the pay of my former boss who had been let go. And she had been doing the job for 6 to 9 months. And then they terminated her. And our midwinter conference was about ready to happen. And I thought the only way they felt comfortable terminating Donna was because they knew I was
Right.
there. So I walked in and resigned on principle and
Wow.
left. And I remember we didn't have cell phones back then, right? And I remember getting home and calling my sister and said, well, I did this, but now I got to figure out how I'm going to pay the bills. And she said, hey, there's this job posted. And it turned out to be a job at Freddie Mac. And it wasn't even called Freddie Mac back then. So it was the mortgage corporation.
Wow.
And I got that job. So, it was,
Everything happens for a reason.
yes. And
To have
Donna
faith.
and I are still in touch.
Oh, that's so
And it's just one of those things that you never know who steps into your life and for what reason. And I think she stepped into my life to teach me how to be a really good leader.
Yes, I love that's a fantastic
Hmm.
story. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you are not your best self, you learn why that was not something you should have done,
Right.
and it makes you be a better person in the
Correct.
future. Uh, in looking back on all the people you've interviewed and met, you've met some
Hmm.
amazing people and
I
interviewed
have.
some fabulous people. Who stands out as someone who, really made an impact on you while you were interviewing them or when you crossed paths with them? I mean,
Uh,
the
there,
resume is a lot.
yeah, there are so many because there are so many people in our industry who have been impactful, and I've been fortunate enough to interview a lot of special people
Right.
outside. And I would say Brad Meltzer. And
Wow.
I don't know if you know who Brad Meltzer is.
Mhm.
He is an award winning New York Times #1 best-selling author, does children's books, comic
Right.
books, write murder mysteries, and all of that. And he just has such a profound message, not only about being present, but about gratitude and really showing up to be the best person that you can be and really getting to know people's stories, not just, you know, saying, hi, Sue. But like when you and I were talking at the event in Detroit, we connected on a level that was beyond work, right? We connected on
Right.
our dogs and we connected on our life experiences. And so Brad does that tenfold. And it's just anytime I see him, it's just such a blessing to have been able to sit with him, to watch him speak, and to read his work.
And I think that's so important to really key into being present. Even we're constantly on our telephones, social media now with AI,
Right,
all of that change, being present is so impactful to people. Even the conversation that we had, I could have had my phone
right,
with me. I think I went to pick up my phone to get your information.
right.
I have learned you really have to make an effort
Hmm.
in today's day and age to be
Yes.
present, even at conferences and as you travel, to be present, look people in the eyes. No,
Yep.
no, and that's a now unfortunately a learned behavior.
Right.
And we have to give that to the next generation of even when I hire people, I am like, I have to teach them how to answer the telephone because they're
Right.
so used to the way they've been doing it. Where do you feel, even though you've retired,
Hmm.
and we're talking about being present with social media, where do you feel that AI is going in this? I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about
Hmm.
AI. Where do you think that it's going to be going in the industry today?
Well, I'm sure you know, and you were at IMB, AI is already in the
in the
industry,
industry, right?
right? And bots and all of the different things. So I do think that there are great places for process improvement.
Mhm.
I do think it's going to impact the number of jobs that, and when you think about when you have to expand your business because the pipeline gets so full and then you've got to shrink it when, times get lean, hopefully where we are using AI helps smooth some of that out, because I'm sure businesses would like to know whether they're dealing with unprecedented volumes or not as much, that they're not having to hire a bunch of folks that they have to lay off in a year or whatever, 6 months. So I hope and I look forward to that being something that could really benefit the industry. But as you know, if you look at social media, now you've got a question as what I'm even looking at. And so I don't know how you tackle that in the industry when you're looking at documents and things. And I don't know if you've seen it where people are saying, I fed my resume into Chat GPT and I was able to get my job faster. And I'm
Right,
like, well, did Chat GPT have words that make it sound like you
right.
did things you didn't do? I don't know, but I I don't know how the validation of the data being correct is something that's so paramount.
I do think that doing the references is going to have to be for
Mhm.
businesses and for people are where we might have taken that for not
Mhm.
done it as much. I think we're
Right,
going to have to not do one. We'll have to do multiple ones so that we can
right.
really see the person that we're getting, and also the companies that we want to interact with on a
Right.
daily basis is super important. I'm going to go back to the three keys because I
Okay.
think they're so important. So, taking risks, I truly
Hmm.
agree that that is a key to anyone's success. I always say you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable,
Hmm.
which is learned, and treating people the way you want to be treated is fantastic because everyone wants to be treated with kindness.
Yes.
And the relationship part and having gratitude for those relationships is something that I don't think you can get ahead in your career without those. And I
Hmm.
know that you are retired, and
Hmm.
what I'm so thankful that you took time out today to be on Grab Your Keys. It's been a
Hmm.
pleasure talking to
It's been a
you.
pleasure.
And I'm so thankful that we met at
Hmm.
toward you have in Detroit, because you were retired then too, so you're
Uh,
not out of it.
I was technically on my way, yes, but I was in the transition period. Yes, it was my
Yes,
last business trip,
that's
and it
exactly right.
ended.
So I feel very graced that now we know each
Mhm.
other, we're friends, we have a
Yes.
relationship, and I am so thankful for that and thankful for your time today.
Oh, thanks.
So
And Sue, I just want to let you know you have my information. Call me. I'd
thank
love to hear from you if you need anything or need my help with anything. And I just know the industry is going to have a great year this year. And let's hope things are much brighter than they've been, in the past few years.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
everyone. If
you.
you loved this, Grab Your Keys, which you 1000% must because Marcia's amazing.
Oh,
Please
thank you.
like and subscribe and comment. And we look forward to seeing you next time on Grab Your Keys.